Here's something I never thought I'd say, but in 2025, Hollywood is terrified of ugly people. And I mean genuinely afraid. I sat down to watch the new Frankenstein adaptation on Netflix, super excited to see their version of Frankenstein's monster. And because the traditional look is so unsettlingly iconic, I knew they were gonna have to up the stakes to make it work. So tell me why they made him a 6'5" Calvin Klein model. Are you actually kidding me? Why is Jacob Elordi playing Frankenstein's monster? Since when did we decide that iconic horror monsters needed to have jawlines sharp enough to cut glass? I can't be the only one who has noticed that Hollywood has a serious hot people problem. It's like studios decided that every single person on screen, monsters included, must fit into the exact same beauty template. The symmetrical, shiny, attractive Instagram face. Seriously, think about it. When was the last time you watched a movie that starred someone who looked like the average everyday person? And don't say someone who was cast as the less attractive best friend, because you are just proving my point. It's become such an issue now that Hollywood isn't just avoiding unattractive people, they're avoiding interesting people. Any face with texture, personality, or God forbid, a feature that isn't mathematically symmetrical gets pushed into the quirky side character category. And what kills me is that this wasn't always the case. There was a time when actors were cast because they actually had something special, a certain energy that made them magnetic to watch. It wasn't about their looks, it was about their ability to act. There is a reason why movies before the 2010s felt so much more realistic, and that's because the people in them looked like actual people. But now, every actress under 30 has the exact same unattainable face. The same ski slope nose, the same overfilled lips, the same buccal fat removal. And the problem is that they go and put these actors into things like period dramas. Nothing takes me out of 18th century England faster than a lead actress who looks like she knows what Pinterest is. And yet, that's what Hollywood gives us. Women who look like influencers cosplaying historical characters. And you may think that this isn't a big issue. Who cares if we don't see realistic faces in cinema? Well, what if I told you that this problem goes so much deeper? For example, the other day I was doom scrolling on TikTok when I found a video of a girl who said she couldn't finish the movie Legally Blonde because Reese Witherspoon's teeth were too yellow. Just let that sink in. She didn't stop watching the movie because she didn't like the plot. She stopped watching because of Reese's yellow teeth. And that's when I realized that this has gone way too far. We've been so conditioned by the Instagram face that anyone who looks remotely human feels wrong. So in today's video, we're gonna look at just how we got here, why every actress now looks copy and pasted, and how this is slowly ruining the future of cinema. Now, some of you may be thinking, Marina, what the hell are you talking about? There are so many beautiful people in Hollywood. Which, yeah, you are correct, but have you noticed how eerily similar everyone looks? Almost like they're the same person in different fonts. This, ladies and gentlemen, is what I like to call the Instagram face, and it is quickly taking over film and TV. But before I tell you exactly why that happened, let me give you a few examples of how damaging this can be for the future of cinema. So recently I watched the movie Anyone But You, which I really expected to like. It had the same vibe as those classic old school rom-coms which I miss so much. The entertaining story, the funny banter, the enemies to lovers trope. But the entire time I was watching it, something just felt a little bit off. Almost like there was something blocking me from connecting with the characters, and at first I couldn't figure out what it was. But then it hit me. It's because they're too conventionally attractive. I can so clearly tell that this movie was made by the male gaze because casting Glen Powell as the lead was just crazy work. Now don't get me wrong, I love Glen. I think he is a fantastic actor, but he also looks like he was sculpted out of protein powder. He's conventionally handsome in a way that doesn't really fit into a rom-com, and please just hear me out on this. Women want men like Hugh Grant and Colin Firth, men with that awkward, quirky charm which goes way beyond looks. Call me insane, but I would rather take Adam Sandler in a rom-com than Henry Cavill any day, and no, I will not explain further. And then you have Sydney Sweeney, and listen, she is very, very pretty, but oh my gosh, can we stop casting her in roles that don't fit? Her character in the movie is supposed to be this emotional, chaotic, unhinged mess, but Sydney plays her like she plays every other role. Bland. There was no depth, no personality, nothing. This should have been a Bridget Jones type of character, one that everyone can relate to. And because of that, it is just impossible to connect to these characters. It's like the studio typed in attractive blonde actor into an AI generator and just went with the first option. It's bad enough that we keep seeing these copy and paste faces in these kinds of roles, but now they're taking over characters that don't belong to them. In Emily Bronte's classic book, Wuthering Heights, she describes her lead female character, Catherine unsure as having features too marked and picturesque to be called pretty. So tell me why in this new movie adaptation they turn around and cast Margot Robbie. I'm sorry, what? Who made this casting decision? Just look at how she looks in the trailer. In what world is she supposed to be portraying an 18-year-old in the early 1800s? Emily Bronte's book is all about class differences and being an outsider. Casting one of the most conventionally attractive actors in a role that quite literally embodies the opposite is absolutely shocking. But it just goes to show you how drastically things have changed. So how did we go from having such a wide range of unique faces to now having one standard of beauty, even for the men? Do any of you guys remember what Instagram was like when it first came out? Back when posting didn't make your heart skip a beat. It used to be just a silly little app where you would post random pictures with your friends with those ugly filters on the top of them. It was seen as so casual, no one was trying too hard to look perfect, everyone was just sharing their life. Then slowly, as the years went by, things started to change. The quality of phones improved, apps got fancier, and suddenly every picture felt like it needed effort, like you needed to perform. The premise of Instagram went from being a fun little scrapbook to being a full-on beauty pageant. But that still doesn't answer the question of how we got to that point. If you were to ask me, I would say that there was 3 cultural moments that catapulted us down this path. Things that we didn't really take seriously at first, but looking back, they were absolute turning points. The first one, that ridiculous "Let Me Take a Selfie" song. It used to drive me insane. And I know it sounds unhinged to call that kind of song revolutionary, but when you think about it, it kinda was. It was the first time a piece of pop culture openly encouraged everyone to obsess over their own face. Then the Kardashians came along with their massive butts and overly edited Instagram pictures. They basically reshaped the entire world's understanding of what beauty should look like, and in my opinion, they were the ones to create this Instagram face. But of course, this type of beauty is just completely unrealistic, so what did this trigger? The rise of Facetune. Just like that, people were editing parts of their body that they'd never been insecure about before, all in the desperate need to fit in with this fast-changing platform. And that's where things really started to spiral, because once you start fixing things that weren't problems to begin with, that's when your real face starts to feel like the wrong version. And as cameras started to get more HD, people realized that they desperately wanted this edited look in real life. It became the infamous Instagram face that we all know today. And at first, the majority of people thought these women looked ridiculous. I specifically remember everyone making fun of Kylie Jenner's big lips. Who remembers the Kylie Jenner lip challenge where everyone was essentially mocking her by suction cupping their lips? So we went from making fun of it to now that same look becoming the default. Do you realize how insane that is? But it makes sense when you think about it, because throughout the years, you'd see more and more influencers getting that same work done. And the more we saw it, the more normal it started to feel. Hello, this is Marina from the future, reminding you all to subscribe to my channel if you love all things movies, TV, pop culture. This is the place for you, so make sure you subscribe so you don't lose me in the algorithm. And of course, this obsession with beauty began creeping its way into Hollywood too. But this was very, very slow at first. If you look at the way certain characters changed throughout the years, characters that were never meant to be hot in the first place, you can see exactly where Hollywood started to change. For example, let's take a look at the Spider-Man franchise. It started off strong in 2002 with Tobey Maguire playing the nerdy, awkward character that is Peter Parker. This casting choice made perfect sense because he fit into that socially awkward kid who suddenly became a superhero. Then we jumped to 2012 with Andrew Garfield taking over the role. Now look, again, I love Andrew, I think he's a great actor, but he was way too cool for the role. Peter Parker is not supposed to have that mysterious skater boy who writes poetry in his free time type of energy. And finally, we get to Tom Holland in 2017. Tom definitely brings that dorky Peter Parker charm, but he is incredibly handsome, athletic, and built like someone who doesn't need a spider bite to be a superhero. Do you see what I mean? If you don't, let's look at the character of Aunt May, because she evolved in the exact same way. In Tobey's original version, she was played by Rosemary Harris, who genuinely looked like an elderly aunt. Then in Andrew's version, it was played by Sally Fields, who is younger than the last, but still feels really maternal. And now in Tom Holland's version, that role is played by the incredibly stunning Marissa Tomei. I mean, what in the world happened here? How did things change so drastically? And listen, I don't want to get into whatever one is lore accurate, because that is not my point. My point is that this shift clearly moved in one direction. And I can promise you this, in today's Hollywood, that casting would never go backwards. You are not going from Marissa Tomei to someone who looks like they bake cookies every Sunday. Sunday. That is not happening, ever. And again, you can even see this with the love interest. It went from Kirsten Dunst to Emma Stone to Zendaya. And it is so easy to sit here and blame Hollywood for enforcing this standard, but the uncomfortable truth is that people online started this. Social media has turned into such a nasty place. People online have developed this unhinged level of confidence where they will proudly call an actor ugly for having a nose, or acne, or a face that hasn't been carved by a 3D printer. And they genuinely think they're being helpful critics when in reality all they're doing is just bullying strangers behind an anime profile picture. And if you think I'm exaggerating, just look at how people talk about celebrities now. Millie Bobby Brown will post a normal photo of herself just existing like a regular human being, and her comments are full of people saying, she looks 40, what happened to her face, she aged weird. Then you have the beautiful Florence Pugh, who gets body shamed on the daily. She openly talked about how exhausting it is when strangers dissect your body on the internet, treating you like an object rather than a human being. And the wildest one? It became a trend to call Zendaya mid. Zendaya, are you actually okay? And guess what? It is not just men doing this. In fact, I see more women participating in this. They will casually post videos about actors they find hideous, or they'll pin women against each other like it's some kind of sport. When people get this comfortable tearing apart even the most objectively gorgeous actresses on the planet, what hope does that have for anyone else? I mean, people can't even watch Legally Blonde now because Reese Witherspoon's teeth are too yellow. And what so many people don't realize is that Hollywood sees this. They see how vicious people can be to one another. They see how fast people tear someone down for just looking human. So why the hell would they then go and cast a normal looking person as the lead? What, to have them be torn apart online? No, these studios want people to go and watch their movie. And you may think I'm crazy for saying that TikTok has this much of an impact on filmmaking, but it's true. Just think about how studios sell their movies now. Instead of the usual trailers, they'll flood social media with these clips of the cast doing silly little TikTok trends in an attempt to go viral. And in today's Hollywood, that virality means everything to these studios. And what better way to do that than by casting people they know will trend? That's why we're seeing so many influencers in movies. That's why we're seeing so many actors start a TikTok. That is why every new young actress looks exactly the same as the last. And that's why all the faces that used to look unique are now injecting themselves to fit into these new standards. I recently watched the newest season of Stranger Things, which by the way is my favorite show ever. And this season is absolutely incredible so far. It is, oh my gosh, you just have to watch it if you haven't seen it, but there was one aspect of it that I found so distracting. Millie Bobby Brown's lip flip. If you don't know what a lip flip is, it's a non-surgical procedure where they inject Botox above the top lip to relax the muscles. This causes the top lip to curl outwards instead of inwards. So when people with a lip flip talk or smile, their top lip will stay exactly like this, so it won't move. But when I smile, my lip kind of goes under. As you can imagine, seeing an actress go 4 seasons looking natural to all of a sudden her top lip being frozen is incredibly jarring. Not only did it distract me from the story, but it also broke my heart to see. But you know what? It is not surprising. Seeing how much Millie Bobby Brown's appearance gets ripped apart online, of course she's gonna go and do something like that. And now sadly, by doing so, she's morphing herself into this standard, into looking like everyone else. This pressure to look a certain way is so extreme in Hollywood, and to me, it is one of the things absolutely killing cinema. Because it's not just that everyone looks the same, it's that they look modern, like aggressively 2025. And what happens when you put someone with that face into a period drama? It stands out like a sore thumb. For decades, period pieces were the closest thing we had to time travel. They used to feel so authentic and genuine. I love the movie Pride and Prejudice, and it really stands out to me. The cast actually looked like people who could have existed in that era, and that is so important when making immersive film. But now we've entered the era of the iPhone face. Honestly, the best way I can describe this is imagine Kim Kardashian was cast in a movie set in the 1700s. No matter how hard the costume department tries, no matter if you have her out there in a bonnet churning butter, harder, she will always look like she's just finished a TikTok dance, and that is the furthest thing that you want in a period film. The actual term iPhone face basically exploded in 2019 when someone on Twitter joked that Timothée Chalamet and Lily Rose Depp were miscast in The King because they looked too aware of modern technology to ever pass in that time period. And they have a point. It completely takes you out of it. Just look at the casting of Michelle Randolph in the show 1923. Sorry, but since when were lip fillers around in the 1900s? What were casting directors thinking? If you've had work done on your face, it should be illegal for you to be in a period drama. That completely just ruins it. It's the same thing with Margot Robbie in Wuthering Heights and Addison Timlin in American Horror Story, which, by the way, is supposed to be set in the 1700s. She looks like an influencer. But honestly, this goes so much further than just Botox and fillers because people today just naturally look so modern. Dakota Johnson in Persuasion, Florence Pugh in Little Women, Millie Bobby Brown in Damsel. All beautiful women, but their faces just look like they can only exist in 2025. And if you think that audiences don't notice, they absolutely do. The recent Netflix show House of Guinness literally got dragged because some of the actors looked way too modern to be in the late 1800s. If you showed random people this picture on the street and asked them where it came from, I can guarantee you that all of them would say book talk. Those cosplayers that dress up like fictional characters, that's exactly what this is giving, not a proper production at all. And this problem stems across all genres. The whole fantasy of a rom-com only works if on some level you can picture yourself in the story. But how the hell are you meant to project yourself onto this messy, relatable character when both the leads are unrealistically attractive?
Commercially hot people make for bad rom-coms, and I think that they should be banned from rom-coms entirely.
Who's too hot to be in rom-coms?
Sydney Sweeney is too hot to be in a rom-com, and Glen Powell is also too hot to be in a rom-com. Rom-coms are meant to be fantasy, but they're supposed to be low fantasy, accessible, it's in our world fantasy. And when you put these insanely hot people into them, it becomes high fantasy, and now no one can relate to it.
And the tropes are usually things like, oh, the main girl is always second best to her friend and she can never find a boyfriend. Yeah, I'm meant to believe that no one is interested in these supermodels. Please, keep it far away from me. Think about how different this is from lead actors in the 2000s and before. Kirsten Dunst, for example, was absolutely everywhere. She was the beautiful cheerleader in Bring It On. She was Spider-Man's love interest. People loved her look because she was authentically pretty. She didn't look like a carbon copy of everyone else. In fact, she famously had slightly crooked teeth. Wow, a shocker for this day and age, I know, but back then, this really wasn't that big of a deal. In fact, she once said that director Sofia Coppola encouraged her to never get cosmetic dental work done because her unique smile was part of her charm. Now imagine Kirsten Dunst was that same age in 2025. Would she get the same roles? I hate to say it, but most definitely not. If Bring It On was made today, I can guarantee you that they would cast someone like Ariana Greenblatt, whilst Kirsten gets downgraded to the quirky best friend. And even that's a stretch. Because what many people don't realize is that the industry is slowly pushing out unconventional actors altogether. Because hot people are no longer just playing hot roles, they're playing every role. Frankenstein, Catherine Earnshaw, characters who are described as being unattractive are being played by some of the most beautiful people on the planet. The most recent example I can think of is Glen Powell in the movie Hitman. People online were losing their minds because the film asked us to believe that Glen Powell is playing some nerdy, painfully ordinary professor. But all they did was slick his hair down and throw some Jeffrey Dahmer glasses on him. I mean, be so serious. But they have students in the film literally describe him as a dorky loser with a forgettable face. And then suddenly in the movie, he takes off his glasses to be this hitman and they're like, oh my gosh, when did our professor get so hot? Whose idea was this? Glen Powell is the dictionary definition of conventionally attractive. So when a movie tries to sell him as this painfully average invisible guy, it pulls you straight out of the story because he's not. He has never been. It just doesn't work. And that's exactly the problem. We've lost that spark that a character's face used to give you the second they appeared on a screen. Back in the day, people like Shelley Duvall, Steve Buscemi, and Philip Seymour Hoffman would show up and you immediately knew that this character was gonna be interesting. screen. Their faces had so much personality that told you a story before they even spoke. And before anyone says, oh, hot actors do play unattractive characters sometimes, yeah, they do, but only after being made hideous by a full prosthetics team. Hollywood would rather spend 6 hours sticking a fake nose onto a supermodel than cast someone who naturally looks unconventional. Just look at Colin Farrell as the Penguin. They take an incredibly handsome man and then completely transform him to the point where he is unrecognizable. Don't get me wrong, he's an incredible actor, one of the best. His performances in this role was just otherworldly. But the fact that we have to uglify a famously beautiful man for the role instead of hiring someone who already brings that energy is just sad. It says everything about how the industry views attractiveness as the starting point for every single casting. If you actually stop and look at the faces Hollywood is putting on screen, then it becomes painfully obvious. The industry has a serious fear of putting anyone on screen who looks remotely human. Not ugly, not unconventional, just human. Someone with pores, texture, asymmetry, or features that don't fit into this new era of perfect beauty. But it is so important that we don't ignore that audiences play such a big role in this. People online have gotten way too comfortable calling actors ugly for just looking normal. They act like their comments don't impact anything, but they do. We live in a day and age where movie studios are paying TikTok editors to make edits of their films instead of doing normal trailers. I'm not joking, these TikTok editors are getting paid thousands and no one would know. Studios care so much about what people say online because in this day and age, that's how a movie goes viral. So if we want Hollywood to cast more interesting faces again, then we can't scream about yellow teeth like they're a jump scare. We have to actually let people look like normal human beings. I believe that cinema only feels alive when the people in it look like real people. And if we want that back, both Hollywood and the audience needs to stop worshipping perfection and start celebrating something far more interesting. People that look like people. I'm so curious to hear if any of you guys have been noticing the same issue, so please let me know in the comments. And if you made it this far, comment the word cinema so I can see who the real ones are and I can go show you some love. Thank you so much for 100,000 subscribers. I can't even believe it. I'm so grateful and I'm so happy to have such a wonderful community supporting me, supporting each other, and I just love it. So please don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!